We good? It says live, so can I
Yeah.
intro? Okay. All right. Tonight on the Science Enthusiast podcast, we are joined by Sean Fracek and Brian Edward from Mythicist Milwaukee, the organizers of the Myth Information Conference. Welcome, guys, to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So I guess we have a lot to talk about tonight, but just little stuff about your conference that nobody on the internet has been talking about at all lately. So for anybody who is unfamiliar with why we might be here or what your conference is about, can you speak a little bit about your organization, the origin of MythCon, and just kind of lay some groundwork for us?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we started Mythicist Milwaukee a little over 4 years ago. And in the beginning, we wanted to do a couple of things. We wanted to, bring a secular a presence to Milwaukee because that was severely lacking. Mm-hmm. And we also wanted to help normalize and popularize the term atheist because, even today, even after all, decades of, especially in the West, of people trying to normalize atheism. When you say you're an atheist, a lot of people say it's taboo or that's weird or whatever. So we were always looking for different ways of making that happen. And we've done a lot. We do podcasts, we do videos, we got the movie coming out. We've worked with celebrity talent. We lined up the Wu-Tang Clan for the Reason Rally. We've partnered with Eric Andre and Hannibal Buress and actually lined up atheists to be on their live show. We work with directors in Hollywood and comedians, and we've lined up comedy shows and stuff, but we always bring it back to atheism. So we always try and tie it in because we're always trying to bring in mainstream audiences into this world to grow the interest in what we're talking about. And with the conference, we started off. We had Killer Priest at one. We also partnered with a lot of atheist personalities that you guys know and have had on the show and stuff. So really what we're trying to do is we're always trying to make it fun, make it entertaining, but also grow it and make it, bring people into the fold that have influence outside of this world and can draw some interest in it. And with this latest conference, one of the things we've done over the years, we've been told, conferences are dying. There's interest. There's not a lot of interest in these anymore. People don't want to travel, things of that nature. And so we're always looking for what's different. So with this conference, what we did, instead of looking outside to the major celebrities and trying to bring them in, we decided to look inward and say, who are some people that we can bring to the table that could inspire interest in this type of event. And when we looked at Armored Shoe and Sargon, we're looking at 3 people that have been insanely successful in building their own platforms to the point where they have millions of followers and millions of subscribers. Why not partner with these people? Why not bring them in and try to obviously, bring interest back into what we're doing? And, love them or hate them, they've been extremely successful in what they've done. So that was kind of the idea with this. And then also, we wanted to talk about Islam in the age of Trump. And we also wanted to do our movie premiere. And funnily enough, we're writing our press releases around the debate on Islam in the age of Trump because we thought that was going to be the controversial thing. We had no idea.
You were wrong.
Yeah. So for 7 months, this docket has been on, these speakers have been on the docket for 7 months. And, we haven't had any interest whatsoever in the conference as far as from a controversial standpoint. We're trying to push the narrative with the movie and then with the Islamic debate between Faisal and Asra. And Asra is fantastic. And we're bringing a Muslim to an atheist conference, which, again, you would think would be kind of controversial, but isn't, I guess.
One that also admitted that she voted for Trump.
Yeah, and she's a woman who voted for Trump. She's a fantastic person. We love her. But when you think controversy, that seems pretty controversial.
That's, I just have so many questions based on that.
Just basically why times 10 with that.
Exactly. Yeah. And before I forget, I just want to bring up one point because we're getting criticized for bringing quote-unquote atheist celebrities like Aaron Ra and Carrie and Fitzgerald and all these people, putting them on the sideline. Well, that wasn't our thought process. They're in the movie. And when there are movie rollouts for the red carpet premieres, you bring the people that are in the movie to see the movie
on its opening day. Right.
Right.
We're kind of following a very like a long respected tradition.
So we're trying to make a red carpet event and again bring something unique to the atheist world. How many movie premiere red carpet premieres do you see? So yeah, we just that kind of is the baseline there. That's kind of who we are and what we do and why we do it.
So I hadn't really heard about MythCon very much just because I'm not always in tune with like everything that's going on until on, you know, Sean and we connected to book Ron for our show. And so, you know, that was just kind of an aside. I knew you, started following Mythicist Milwaukee on Twitter, but then I started noticing tweets about your conference in the context of there are these, you know, I guess for better or worse, they're kind of called YouTube shitlords and stuff like that by people on Twitter and the internet. And I had no idea who some of these people were. Like I didn't know Sargon and Shuan Head and Armored Skeptic until I started looking a little bit into some of the criticism that you guys had started receiving. And that's been what, for some weeks now that this
we're nearing a month right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm sure you haven't been keeping track at all of all of this. But so I looked them up a little bit because I really had no idea the context of any of this. I noticed that Sargon is on stage with Thomas Smith, somebody who I really respect. I know Dan listens to Thomas too on his shows.
And future friend of our show, I think we have him booked next week or
for next week. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
So I saw that and was like, okay, maybe that's something kind of interesting because here's somebody, Sargon, who I would say from what I've seen, probably not somebody who I share a lot of common.
not somebody I would want to have a beer with.
Okay. Yes. So thank you. But next to Thomas, who I think has some really strong ideas. And I thought that was an interesting pairing that you guys did because here's a way to have two different individuals, you know, just in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And like, let's see what happens. Right.
Yeah, because we're talking about kind of cultural politics here. And I think that Sargon and Thomas Smith, they're the cultural political opposite. So you don't want somebody who's kind of like 10 degrees one way and only 5 the other way. But so whatever number you want to put at it, I think they're on kind of opposite ends, but to the same degree within the political mainstream, both of them, but are opposite.
Yeah. And I personally don't like right, left, up, down, center.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we're all individuals, especially in this world. We tend to be more individuals as far as what, you know, what our thoughts are. I like to take a little bit from all sides, you know, and incorporate that into, you know, my perceptions. And having two people on that don't necessarily agree is a good way of seeing maybe you do agree with, you know, something Sargon says, or you do agree with Thomas, you know, and you just didn't know.
Right. And you want to find as much common ground as you can. And that's a good starting point for talking about disagreements.
And so I think, you know, something that I think I want to go to a little bit further down the line is some of the criticisms and the particular objections people have to some of these personalities. But I guess I'm also curious about, you know, all of this, the public objection to your guests. Was there conversation brought to you personally to, you know, to have people say, listen, like people don't feel necessarily safe in a sense with these kind of ideas and personalities on display? Was this brought to you personally, or how did you kind of know about this feedback?
We kind of wish it would have been like brought to us personally. We have our email and phone number on the website, but rather than that, we just got blasted on Twitter, just absolute blasted. No one approaching in a way that wants to have real dialogue. Here are my concerns. It's just kind of ad hominem insult. How dare you? How could you? You're a white nationalist. You're a Nazi. How dare you do this? Generally, people are not going to respond nicely when you're engaged in that way. Yeah. So we didn't engage those, but before anyone really asked us our opinion, they were trying to deplatform our guests by calling our venue.
Yeah, literally writing emails to the venue, which again, our whole thing is about normalizing atheism and bringing that to Milwaukee. And we've partnered with the #1 venue in Milwaukee, which is the historical Pabst Theater, just to have them, to allow us to have an atheist conference there really sends shockwaves in Milwaukee of saying, like, this is something that's, we didn't talk about this. And not only, as Brian said, did they come to us, they went right above our head, went to the venue, started telling them Nazis were going to be there. And this is right after Charlottesville.
And citing fake news.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Citing fake news.
We have the emails.
Citing false claims, citing, all of these terrible things, to the point where Brian and I had to then meet with the board of the Pabst. So there's 7 people on the board, and we had to have a special meeting with them. And this doesn't happen. And they essentially said, "Hey, are you bringing Nazis here or what?"
They wanted to look us in the eye.
Yeah,
and
after that, then they are continuing to move forward with us. They're supportive of what we're doing, but the requirement was that we had to spend an additional $3,000 plus for security, just to have Milwaukee police outside because of these threats.
So we are the first atheist conference, at least to my knowledge, to have a police presence there because of other atheists. So
Yeah.
it wasn't the Westboro Baptists that are coming at us; it's other atheists.
Yeah.
So can I ask then, because I think for me, looking at this situation, part of what strikes me as slightly problematic is, I just wish that actual conversation between people on the one side that was opposing it and you.
Well, yeah, and even then, has anybody that's voiced concerns publicly, have they talked to you directly about it?
Well, I will say a couple of our speakers have shown us the professional courtesy, and again, they've been on the docket for 7 months, which is kind of funny. I've had many communications with everyone involved, several emails, many communications, and okay, I get it, maybe they didn't realize until now, but they have. So we have had a couple of our professional contacts say, "Hey, this is my concern," and given us a chance to explain what we're trying to do and why we're doing it. But the critics online, no.
There were a few that emailed privately, and we answered all of those. And
but
several,
not the critics.
Well, there were a few polite. There were a few polite critics that emailed us directly. Yeah, then they were kind of regular people.
Just regular.
Yeah, average Joes and Janes.
Mini bosses, as I like to call them.
And many of those, I had several exchanges back and forth, and they said, oh, that's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
In fact, the biggest misconception was, why are you putting Sargon on stage? No, but nobody seemed to look at the website and find out that it was actually a debate with Thomas Smith.
And Dave Rubin was our first choice, and Dave had to unfortunately cancel a month in.
So
I'm sorry,
Dave Rubin was
Dave Rubin. Okay.
Yeah.
But then Dave Rubin had to cancel, so we replaced Dave with Sargon. So now it's Sargon Smith.
Yeah.
And so I guess for me, sorry.
We're skeptics, and everyone just took what they heard at face value without just going to a website to quick fact check.
Yeah.
I guess, because I've read through a lot of different comment threads and tweets and all of that, as this has all been happening. And I guess the criticism that I see that I guess strikes me as the one that, I don't know, just kind of sucks the most, and I want to hear what you guys have to say, is when people say that, because these people have ideas, kind of anti-feminist or not friendly towards LGBT community, and I see people who I know and respect, friends kind of saying it's not an environment that would make them feel safe. Those are the ones that I'm just like, oh, fuck, because then I know you guys.
Right.
And from a personal level, know that that's not you.
Right.
And so I guess I want to talk about the idea of platforms.
Sure.
And I guess what your thinking is and how you do respond to people when they say, listen, I find these ideas sort of toxic or whatever, or however they want to describe it.
Yeah, and even the fact that while maybe we are 20% in alignment with things that he thinks like gods and things like that, the other parts, the 20% that we violently oppose, disqualifies him from, or not just him in particular, of course, but disqualifies this person from even being deserving of having this platform.
Okay, we've heard that a lot, and we respect all criticism they're coming in. But I would return the question and say, what if it were Christians that were saying, I can't believe that you're bringing in these atheists?
Which happened.
Right. What would you say if someone said, well, you know, this I feel very uncomfortable in this environment. If it were, again, was just a Christian asking you, you know, come on, this is a primarily Christian community. Yeah. You're bringing in people that deeply offend us. They make us feel scared.
Right. Well, I think there's two elements to that. First of all, we vetted Armored Shoe and Sargon's videos, and we don't feel that criticism is legitimate. They are for egalitarian rights. They you know, they are for LGBT community rights and all the stuff on the left. You know, they call themselves liberals, and a lot of the videos they have now, they are critical of extremes, and that's, you know, people can make an argument that, okay, maybe they're not is willing to accept the extreme side of the left, but, you know, everyone has their right to an opinion. But secondly, what I want to say there too is the fact that platforms, when we have platforms, these people have over millions and millions of followers. Sargon was just on Joe Rogan, and I work with Joe Rogan's booker. I was targeted by Scientology because I lined up Ron Miscavige for Joe Rogan's podcast, and the church came at us hard. And so I know twofold that Joe just doesn't book anyone because it's almost impossible to get someone on the show. And secondly, you know, the vitriol that we're receiving is nothing in comparison to Scientology, which is bizarre. But when we talk about platforms, they have their own platforms. Why are we so scared of bringing them to the PAPS? The PAPS has 1,300 seats. These people have millions of followers. They don't need us. They don't need to be at this conference. They can just do what they're doing and not talk to anybody on the other side if they wanted to, but they're actually willing to come and exchange ideas. I think that's what we should be supportive of.
So you do genuinely think that they are willing to talk and listen?
Absolutely. And the reason why I know this is I've watched when we were looking at this thing, we can make the extreme vetting joke, but I'm very familiar with these YouTubers. And a lot of people think on YouTube, it's only anti-social justice. And I hate this label, social and anti, because I don't think that's appropriate. But let's say pro-social justice and skeptics of social justice. People think that YouTube is just full of skeptics, the side, when that's not true. There are ContraPoints, H Bomber guy, Steve Shives is even online, but there's a whole bunch. But I'd say ContraPoints, H Bomber guy, Francesco Ramsey, and others. Now there's a lot of others too. You know, Sargon, Armored and Shoe. There's Bearing. There's a lot of people, but they're having these discussions. ContraPoints just 3 days ago, or 3 or 4 days ago, has had a 1 hour discussion with Sargon, and it was fantastic. In fact, there are other YouTubers that have trimmed it down and have a best of that, and that has a ton of views. Eli Bosnick, who is definitely, I would say, social justice warriors, talking to Bearing from Australia, and they've had good conversations. So these conversations are happening. They're online. Already happening. Why are they allowed not to happen in a conference? To me, I think it's even better when you have the human factor of being next to somebody. I think it's even better than
allowing others to be a part of that conversation. There's large amounts of time for Q&A. There's a VIP party where people can talk with them. They would not show up if they weren't ready to discuss, or they would show up, do their thing, and leave. And that's not what they're doing. They're part of all the events and all of the, you know, everything that's going on. So they're not, you know, running away.
And those when you watch it, it's not like Fox News and they're screaming back and forth at each other. These are really good, productive conversations. I'm watching much more YouTube conversations than I am CNN because it's just more productive
and entertaining.
And I think part of the concern is that maybe, and I'm not trying to take any sides here because I don't know a whole lot about Sargon and Armored and things like that. But I think part of it might be is it's viewed as an endorsement just to have him, and right or wrong, people may not know that opportunity, because I didn't even necessarily know that there was going to be a lot of opportunity for you know, questioning or challenging those ideas. So it's the concern that these people have the platform, and that an unchallenged platform that looks like, or this comes off as an endorsement. So just so I understand what because I'm going to be there in a couple weeks. These people are going to be able to they're going to have their unchallenged time to talk or whatever, but then there's going to be Q&A like after each one, or is that after the actual, because I know it's only a 1 day thing.
Yeah, both. You have it after their talks, and then also in the halls and whatever. And this narrative has come up. Now this is our 4th major conference. We've produced many events. This is our 4th major actual conference, and this narrative of putting Armor and Shoe up there unchallenged, this makes 0 sense to me. So I guess my retort to that is, okay, we have Ron up there talking about his time in the Church of Scientology. Am I supposed to get David up there to argue with Ron? We had Killa Priest 2 years ago. Am I supposed to get the Bone Thugs and Harmony up there to make sure that everything he's saying is accurate? The conferences give people, it doesn't matter who they are, a platform to talk for an hour or whatever, based on whatever presentation they have. Now, conference organizers typically have the right to veto and approve things like that, but typically, especially in our conferences, they say, this is what we want to talk about. We say, great, get up there and do it. So this whole being challenged on stage, this debate format that we've actually done is new. We've been toying with this. Again, Asra and Faisal is our debate this year, and then the idea behind Thomas and Sargon was just to have a conversation, which is turning more into debate, which is fine. But to hold us to a standard of having to challenge everybody on stage, and none of the other conferences are doing that, I don't know where this started.
And I think that a lot of people are misconstruing the political landscape. I mean, I can't just never have left the state of Wisconsin and call myself well-traveled. And if people think that these 3, Armored Shoe and Sargon, are on the hardcore political right, they just simply don't understand the political right at all.
Right.
That I roam all over. I've read ISIS's magazine to Beak, right? I mean, to talk about as hardcore as you can get. I've been on Hezbollah Tahrir, which is an Islamist website. The browser clicks red for a second every time you go on. I know I'm being tracked. I've hopped on actual alt-right websites, like the Daily Stormer. I mean, to read where actual racists, real white nationalists that are anti-Semitic and truly believe that only white people can steward Western liberal democracy, and that somehow if they are not a majority, we lose civilization.
Right.
And this is ridiculous. Yeah. And they're conflating people. They don't even understand conservatives. These people are left-leading liberals. They're center-left liberals. It's just they have a few points that may come off conservative as it comes to social justice.
Right.
So to call them alt-right is simply to not understand the political landscape.
And to call us alt-right by association makes even less sense. But the other thing that I think these critics are sorely lacking in knowledge is the entertainment world itself. The best entertainers out there have controversial material. They're able to present things in a way that are controversial, but they're still funny. And the best entertainers do this and do this well. There's always a fine line between going too far and what's acceptable and funny. I mean, Bill Maher lost his show.
That's exactly who I was came to mind whenever you said that.
Bill Maher lost the show on ABC after, he made some unfortunate jokes.
What about Kathy Griffin?
Kathy Griffin. But even if you look at Jim Jeffries, David Cross, Sarah Silverman, they've all said ridiculous things on stage, but that's a part of being an entertainer. Comedy and entertainment is a really difficult art form, and you fail more than you succeed. And the fact that these 3 entertainers have created their own platform to the point where they have all of these people that watch them means that they're doing something right. These are entertainers, but they're also atheists that should be allies with us, that should be in the conversation to help normalize and popularize atheism. That it's the bottom line.
Right. Yeah. Is the Daily Show news or comedy, or is it both?
Right.
I mean, it's both. And I think a lot of the best people, whether you're a social justice warrior or a skeptic, the most popular ones combine like their actual cultural politics and comedy.
Right.
Yeah. I guess, because you talked about the entertainment factor, the fact that these people have really cultivated quite an audience. And then I guess it's a whole other discussion, but then it's like, you have this audience. Can you use that audience like for good? Or, do you have any responsibility for the way your audience behaves, like on the internet? Like, I feel like a lot of the stuff that happened around, this controversy is people on all sides just kind of behaving terribly on the internet. And that's everybody.
Always the challenge for celebrities. I mean, you can use your celebrity for good. You can use your celebrity to, share terrible ideas. I mean, one of the UFC fighters was on Joe Rogan's podcast not too long ago, Eddie Bravo, and he was talking about how he thinks the world is flat, the earth is flat. And Joe Rogan rightfully corrected him and said, listen, Eddie, you have a gigantic following when you share ideas that aren't like factual or research, because, he didn't know anything about it. He's just, that's what I think. This is your responsibility as somebody that's a public figure to make sure that you have an argument and facts to back up the things you say. So it's always been that responsibility of people with followings. We can't control what people use their followings for. All we can do is bring them in, and hopefully, they see the benefit. And, ironically enough, we're bringing these people. We have Asra and Faisal coming and talking about Islam. So, what are they doing with their audience? They're promoting a conference that wants to have a dialogue about Islam. Is that not something good that they're promoting?
Yeah.
They're talking about Scientology and exposing that. They're using their platforms to advertise a conference that is willing to take on Scientology. Is that a good use of their platforms? I would agree, yes.
Yeah. We had Richard Carrier debate Justin Bass, and that was one of our second conferences, and we specifically marketed to the religious because our social media reach is probably not going to catch a lot of religious. So we went to it. Yeah. Churches dropped off flyers everywhere, and when we took our survey results, it looks like we broke about 70-30 or maybe 75-25. So we had a 25% minority religious, but that's not so small that they feel outdone. And not only did everybody have a good time, everyone felt like I can express my views.
Let's do more of this.
And there was people coming up asking questions, and they'd said, I'm a Christian. And then they would say, and so everyone kind of announced where they were. But we actually got 2 Christians that joined our group after that. So wow, that this was really helpful.
Yeah. I guess it's, you never know where you could reach somebody. And I guess to kind of say, there's no hope to change minds, and it's like, then what's anybody doing?
Right.
Yeah.
What's the point of just talking to each other? And so that's where it's hard to, I don't know, there's just so much around this whole thing, but at the end of the day, you have people on stage themselves and their ideas exposed right there in front of an audience. And so for me, I guess my hope is, all right, you have, Sargon and Thomas, and it's them and their ideas, and the audience and anybody who watches can take that in and, either confirm things that they thought, or, I honestly, my bias is, I hope Thomas does a fucking awesome job. That's me.
That's great that you can admit.
And
I admit that I have a libertarian bias. I know it, and it's very important for all of us to get out of that bubble. If I lived in a libertarian bubble, it would suck.
Right. But
Go ahead. And I just feel like Sean and I have talked a bit over the past couple weeks, and I've been pretty honest with you the whole time of just where my personal bias is. And that's why this whole thing has been a little tricky for me, because I definitely personally skew more towards my views mirror those of the SJW kind of, but I don't necessarily agree with every measure taken to try to do whatever to your conference, So
and Natalie, that's why Natalie and I get along so well, is we are so consistent with so many of our views, and our base was, and we got tons of pushback when we said maybe we shouldn't punch people because of difference in ideology. And so I think it's things like that, and just not wanting, just the fear of promoting these ideas. And again, from what I've read from a few people, I know you mentioned Eli, who's a friend of the show, he's talked about that a lot on his social media, and a lot of the comments are, why are we giving this platform to these people when we could promote other people's ideas? So can you speak to that a little bit, why if these people are controversial, and I don't think controversy is necessarily a bad thing. Is like you said, that's how you're getting a lot of free press because of this within the atheist community.
You know, that John Stuart Mill quotes come in when one side is using a lot of abusive language. The other side feels like you can't express your opinion. So how do we know what opinions all these people in the atheist conference really have? If only one side is kind of allowed to be said, you can bet that if people hold certain views, they're not speaking up.
Right. Well, I'll say this. I have twofold answers for two ideas for you. So atheism has always been defended by being the side that uses thought and logic and reason to battle arguments instead of violence. Religion, over time, over millennia, has used ridiculous amounts of violence to force people to their will to believe what they believe, and it still happens all over the world. And now this narrative of atheists advocating for violence we're going to lose the moral high ground. If that is something that is becoming more popular, that's it. Then atheism is no different than religion. Atheism was always able to be separated because we are not violent. We use our thoughts and facts to back up our arguments. But if we become violent, that's it. It's over. But secondly is tactics. Now, going into this experience, I was like a newborn baby. I didn't know SJW, anti-SJW, up, down, left, right. I just want to put on a good show. I want to popularize atheism. I want to bring people that are going to, help spread that message. And going through this experience, I look at tactics, and I think tactics are really what should be challenged in this whole situation. Now, for sake of argument, if we're going to say one side or the other side, let's say SJW, critics of SJW, whatever. Let's just say those are two sides. There's two sides there. One side has been very supportive and promoting us and been very professional and responsive and helpful. The other side has done nothing but slander us, call us names, bully us, send us a ton of messages, cost us a ton of money. It's got to the point where my wife is a professional PR person, and it got so bad because she was helping with a lot of the crisis management messaging and things like that from a PR standpoint. She got to the point where she just called me just bawling and saying, I can't take this anymore. What they're saying is really affecting me to that point. So if you want to win people over to your side, you have to start thinking about tactics. And I understand, and this is where I say this is self-serving for these critics, because we believe in a professional approach of creating allies and working hard to foster relationships and working hard to, stay professional. And it's much easier to use your platform to attack and criticize and attack people that are bigger than you in order to increase your platform. And I say that these people are doing just this because, again, Thomas has been on Smith with Sargon for 7 months. Instead of this other side saying, let me get behind Thomas. I hope Thomas wins. I hope he does well, blah, blah, blah. Thomas hasn't even been part of the conversation. It's Sargon's a piece of shit and you guys are white nationalists. And that is extremely telling to me that these people are just trying to build their own platforms by creating controversy and capitalizing off of controversy that they've created while simultaneously bullying an innocent organization that was just trying to put on a good show.
And calling us a Nazi training camp.
Yeah, I saw that. And I mean, Dan, please don't go to Milwaukee and come back a Nazi, because I don't think I can do the show anymore.
I mean, you never know. Open mind, yada, yada, yada.
Oh my God. No, but,
See, I laugh so you know I'm joking.
But that's where hyperbole just sometimes it negates any good argument that's there. And that's where I feel like, and I know I can probably be like easily criticized for seeming too middle of the road on things, but I just don't know that level of hyperbole is going to win anybody anything.
Right.
Because
it just makes you look ridiculous. Your arguments are now a moot point when you start using that type of hyperbole and a lot of the hate speech that they're using towards us. Logical people, professional people and I don't think there's anything wrong with being in the center. Honestly, I think it's a good thing to pull from all sides, but logical people are going to see this type of this narrative they've created and just say, this is ridiculous, and stop listening. And now you've just they lost someone who puts on a conference, who can host people and potentially host them. They've lost me completely. you know, with their tactics. It's really, really bad tactics. So,
well, and it seems
Spit in
like
somebody's face and ask them on a date. You can't do it.
no, and it seems like this whole issue, the controversy around it, has I don't know. I don't even know how to try to explain it, but it's people like posting Facebook statuses where it's pretty much like, if you don't agree with me on this thing, we're not friends anymore. And I don't know how people, well, I mean, I guess I do in a sense. And one of my ideas about the internet is it's really easy to say these things, type them out, be a total badass, press enter. There it is. You don't have to have these conversations face to face. I'm talking about so many different things right now,
Right,
though, and not just this. But no, I think that that's where this has been a tricky issue to even think about, because I care about it on the level of how it affects a lot of people, but also I'll admit, again, bias, that it bums me out how it affects you guys, who I, have now, I've been on your show, Sean, where, we've become, I think, friends and stuff. So it's hard to see.
We're all about making friends.
That.
Saying this to someone's face, you don't say what they've been saying to someone's face. You don't, it doesn't happen. And, and unfortunately, they hit enter, they go back to their real lives where this doesn't affect them personally, but it affects others. And, this type of bullying online, I can see, if you're a teenager, if you're someone that's impressionable or someone with low self-esteem, this could really cause somebody to do something bad. And they, it's on them. And this is online bullying.
And if you look at the statistics in Generation Z, there's a right-leaning shift, and I think it's very much because of this.
Right, and we're trying to set the precedent and set the tone of professionalism and professional courtesy. We have thousands and thousands of these comments and notifications, blogs and videos written about, made about it. And we are not retaliating. We're not going back and, saying, we're not utilizing their tactics, because we think professionalism is missing in this world. And we're trying to kind of be that beacon to change that.
If you've watched Joe Rogan's interview with Brett Weinstein, do you know who Brett is?
Yes, from Evergreen, the professor. Yes.
And his that was absolutely a fantastic podcast. And actually his speech moved me a lot, because when Joe said, God, these guys are just crazy. And he said, no, they're not. There's real social justice issues in there. They're real. They're real. Don't mistake that. But he absolutely agreed that this messaging is so toxic that not only does it not help social justice, it hurts it. And I would say to the social justice warriors, like, that help social justice, calm down that rhetoric.
Advocate of change. Advocate, the social justice warriors out there that we know and we are allied with and that are our friends, they really have an opportunity here to step up and start challenging these tactics that are being used by what I call the mini bosses. There really is an opportunity here to challenge this and say, this is not how we behave. This is not how we're going to win people over. This is not how we win over hearts and minds. There really is an opportunity here for that. And I think that's the next thing in the atheist world. Everyone keeps asking, where's atheism going? Where's this going? I think that's where we're trending, is picking up the pieces now and becoming more professional as a movement.
I've talked to a lot of the fans of our controversial speakers, which again, I don't think are controversial. I emailed, I think the count it's close to about 1,000. And that's that's a nice small sample set. Like, these are egalitarians. These people are not racist. These people are feminist by definition. If you count egalitarian, equal rights and opportunities for women, that fits some people's definition of feminism. So really what they're against is social justice overreach in bad tactics. I absolutely think these people would be allies if they could just stop being called racist and stop immediately having knee jerks and say, I think this. But the fact is, you're just saying you're not allowed to think that, as opposed to, why do you think that?
Or
let's have a conversation.
Or it's okay to disagree.
Yeah. And it is okay to disagree. I don't think that the political left, would be good if it was homogeneous. If everyone was on the left, we're not going to have the best society. If everyone's on the right, we need a mix. The best you want you want those to get along, take the best ideas of both and combine them. I mean, think about it in genetics. If you have a genetically diverse species, it does very well. But cheetahs, for example, have gone through this terrible bottleneck, and they're genetically almost completely homogeneous to the fact where you can skin graft a cheetah from a zoo to something in the wild, and it doesn't get there's no rejection, because they're almost completely the same, but their immune systems have no diversity either. And that's why cheetahs are on the endangered list. Their babies died. So think about in ideas. If we were completely homogeneous in ideas, where are we going to be?
Right. And I guess I'll just close that thought up with, you know, if you're trying to deplatform people that you don't agree with, you're not very far from deplatforming people that you do agree with.
That's true. And there's a lot of social science that says that, you know, the social justice warriors that say, you know, come on, people were born this way. You were born with that skin color. How dare you discriminate against them? I agree. But what they don't look into is the social science that says that there are genetic leanings to conservatism and liberalism. Is it fair to discriminate against somebody who's genetically biased for conservatism? Or is it fair to the right to bias against those that are genetically programmed to do this? You know, and you can look up the social science on this, that it's solid. And it seems like, I feel the right often denies climate change science, but the left likes to deny certain social science. Like I don't think we're ever going to be homogeneous in ideas, and I don't think we should be. We just need to get along.
Right.
No, there's never going to be a point where everybody agrees on everything. That's not going to happen. And I think that, you know, seeing with your conference, you're trying, it seems like from what you're saying, to put different ideas there and let people showcase their opinion and hopefully encourage dialogue. It seemed like a lot of people kind of saying, you know, Seth Andrews, drop out of this thing because, or, you know, don't show up because it's, you know, ideas or whatever. But recently, right now, Seth is speaking.
He is. He's
at the conference.
The last speaker. So he's going to tie everything together. And we gave him, like he said, an uncensored microphone, and then we're going right into the movie, which I think everybody's gonna be able to get behind.
And the other thing too, you know, people think we're masterminds and we're some type of visionaries. Again, if you look at the lineup, we're talking about Scientology, we're talking about Islam in the age of Trump, we're calling Jesus a myth, and somehow YouTube entertainers became the focus. Like how could we ever have predicted that? You know, so it's just bizarre.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, kind of the conference is happening. What do you hope, like when you are done and can reflect on that day, what are you hoping to think like were the highlights of what happened in terms of the atmosphere, the conversations, all of that? Like what do you hope after all this shit has settled and you put on a conference?
Well, hopefully people will say that was freaking awesome. But that what I really want is a lot of conversations and people to look at somebody else and they're having fun. And then they say, well, what do you think? What side are you on or whatever? And thinking, oh, wow, I thought you were on the others. To see this humanity, for the person to say, I lean SJW. Oh, I don't. I'm an Armored fan. But wow, you're pretty cool. I like you. Can we have a conversation? Or even, I don't agree with you on anything on these cultural politics at all, but you're a pretty good person. I mean, that would do a lot into really getting the dialogue. I'm convinced that there are a lot of social justice causes that could really be helped by this, in so much as that if we can clear this acrid fog of nastiness, people get together and say, guess what? There's racism in the Baltimore police department, systemic racism. Let's deal with that. As opposed to saying, Whitey is the problem. You know, that there are pockets of systemic racism, but I don't think it's everywhere. Yeah. Because, you know, to say that it's everywhere and somebody's running a business organization, and I know for sure it's not in my organization, but yet I'm being told that I have privilege and it's everywhere, and I'm blind and I can't see it because I have unconscious bias. I mean, that turns people away. In fact, even the science on unconscious bias is extraordinarily weak. And if you if you actually talk to the professors that are looking at this literature, it's very new. We can't draw conclusions from it yet. To say that it's scientific it's a stretch.
Cynically, I'd say I hope there are protesters because of the amount of money that we had to spend on it. But yeah, I honestly don't think that's going to happen. But what I do hope is the message of someone like Asra Nomani, who's about reforming Islam and making some real change in there, and giving Faisal the opportunity to share his thoughts on how that should happen, or on apostasy in itself in Islam, because I think that is something that we should still be talking about instead of, again, YouTube entertainers. So hopefully that comes to the forefront. Ron's story on Scientology and just how the cult operates, and getting more people behind that effort to really expose and help, Leah and Mike Rinder and Leah Remini are doing, expose what's happening in the church, and all of the human rights violations that do happen in there. Right. I hope that, Melissa Chen has the opportunity to share again, what her thoughts are on enlightenment values, and Armored and Shu have a good time at their first conference experience, and Sargon and Thomas, that it's a good conversation. I honestly do, with kicking and screaming, a lot of times when you're on the cutting edge, you get a lot of this, and people have to come kicking and screaming. I truly think that conferences that follow this will start to look like this, because this is what people are talking about. This is these social topics. This is where we're kind of, as a country, we're all trending toward, and the atheist movement has obviously been affected as well, and we need to have these conversations, and I hope we can show people that it can happen safely, sanely, and also having a good time with it.
To disagree sanely. And I really feel like to address the conversation of, but this is worrisome to marginalized groups. We've talked to those that feel that, well, these speakers make me feel unsafe, because that they're kind of putting down entire groups of people. That's trans folks for existence will say, but that Chuan has said two genders before. Actually, she's evolving on that, but that they're accusing Chuan of being transphobic. Yet her best friend is a trans person. And now, either way, if you look at it, I would say most people, let's say it's 90% of trans people are social justice warriors. What about that other 10% that feel differently? Aren't we just and we say that, well, they can't share their views? Aren't we just discriminating against this different minority? I mean, on YouTube, I know 2 or 4 trans people who are social justice warriors: Kat Black and Zinnia Jones, both on the social justice side, but also Blair White and Thurman Meyer are both on the other side. And they've done, all 4 of them have done so much to normalize trans, to help get people from not thinking that's weird, or like trans people are up against violence, they have high suicide rates. But if you think about it, like, is Blair White, or I mean, is Kat Black and Zinnia Jones going to convince a lot of Republicans? But Thurman Meyer and Blair White, who both voted for Trump, they have something in common, have a lot better chance of convincing those on the right to accept trans, to accept trans people. Is, wow, okay, yeah, it's just cool. Like, and to say that Blair White just hates herself because she's trans and she voted for Trump is to be ridiculous. Like, they're all doing good work. And I think that when you talk about people as groups, no group ever is thinking the same thing. Everything's divided politically. And if you're going to say all groups like this, just because they're majority, believe this, you're just discriminating against a different minority.
Yeah, and I think too, as my last thought on this, I hope, what I hope comes out of this conference is that we'll call them the SJW people. I hope they learn a lesson, and I hope there's people on that side that see the mistakes that these mini bosses have made and do something to start correcting their tactics, because it's not going to work, and it's not going to win over hearts and minds.
And I would say to those right on the other side to consider some of the arguments, because there are cores of truth within social justice that are simply not being heard because they come off so offensive. And to talk to those on the social justice side that really will sit down and have a conversation with you and really get at what they are. And I bet you could find yourself some allies.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of important conversations that are still to be had. I mean, I know personally, like, I do feel like some sort of, I hate to say it, like everybody's a little bit racist, but I feel a little bit more like that. But
it's more, I think it's not racist. It's just implicit bias.
Implicit bias. Yeah.
Denying the existence of institutionalized racism. This is a topic of another podcast.
But I'm just saying,
I will say with that, and we can talk about that later because I know we're out of time here.
But yeah, I was just going to say there are so many conversations that I think need to happen as long as people can come at it from a place of let's talk instead of yell, whether that's typing in caps lock or literally yelling at each other. And I think if what you guys are trying to do is provide a platform for that sort of dialogue, like,
yeah,
okay.
The vision of MythCon. That's exactly what we're trying to do. I don't look at those that don't share my views as my enemy. The only people I would look at as the enemy is those that refuse to allow me to state them, and those that don't want to discuss them. I love talking to people that don't share my political views. And that's my most fun conversation. It would be so boring in a bubble.
And I wanted to thank you guys again for the professional courtesy. Instead of going out there and writing blogs on what you think we are, giving us the actual courtesy of coming to talk to us and allowing us to explain who we are. And there needs to be more of that. So. Yeah,
because obviously it's like, we have points of probably some disagreement, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't say cancel your conference, disinvite people, whatever. It's more, how can we all do our best to create a dialogue that's productive? Yes. And have that be the goal, of all of us. And yeah. And I know that's probably too, I don't know, cliche and whatever, and I know I speak from my own place of privilege with that too. So I guess I acknowledge that also.
Sign the peace pledge. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting, but yeah, check out the peace pledge. Mythicist Milwaukee. We tweeted it out on the website as well. And we kind of outline what we think are the rules of engagement for good constructive dialogue.
No violence, no harassing, no none of that, and just being willing to listen to ideas even though you don't necessarily agree.
Recognize that we all have emotions and that's okay, but don't let them take control of you. Be able to restate the other person's position in a way in which they would agree.
Well, I am not. I'm looking for a fist fight when I go there. I paid my money. I booked my hotel. Both Friday and Saturday night, got VIP tickets. So I'm looking to see some punching happening because that's what we're all about, right?
Well, you're gonna see the debate, but again, there's rules of engagement in the debate, right? No punching below the belt.
I'm joking.
No punching. No, but you're gonna see some vigorous dialogue up there. If you it's gonna be a walk in the park with Thomas Smith and Sargon. It's gonna be a vigorous debate, but it's gonna be a constructive one.
That's right.
So you're gonna get a fair fight, if you will. But I wouldn't call it a fight. You're gonna see a good dialogue with some, a spirited debate. Is that fair?
I think that's probably fair. And no, we appreciate you guys also, coming on and talking to us about this. And I know this is, the kind of conversation at the end of which probably maybe some people watching are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm happy. There are probably people who are not satisfied. But that's life, isn't it? And the internet's a dumpster fire. And
perhaps this is I don't. Sorry to interrupt. I don't want us to close out here without me having said this. So this is I don't expect you guys to answer for this because obviously not Sargon. So maybe this is more of an open letter, open question to him. And again, this is just me not knowing a whole lot about him, and so I'm not trying to not cast judgment on him. I just want to know why the fuck you feel it's appropriate to tell somebody that on Twitter that you're not going to rape them. So you can reach out to us, Dan at Enthusiast.com, or we can hang out and talk about it. I just want to know why or how appropriate or acceptable to say to anybody. So again, this is not directed towards you guys as organizers. That's just kind of just an open question for that he can.
And in the spirit of MythCon, you'll be able to ask that question.
And you will be able to ask that question. But I guess, again, people in the entertainment world have said things, made bad jokes, really
but that is beyond bad jokes. That is
it's a bad attempt
not acceptable behavior in any sort of civilized society, any sort of intelligent discussion. That's beyond.
Beyond
have
the pale is the phrase,
I saw like something else more recent that was kind of Bill Maher using the N-word. I would not do that, and I understand why people are upset about that. But I see what he was trying to do, and I can kind of understand where his mind was, trying to be edgy like that, and also making a joke at the expense of the person that was there. But things like that, like saying that I wouldn't rape you, I just want to know what the thought behind that is.
And we should be able to ask those questions, and that's a fair one.
So Dan, you will be there, and if you have the chance, can you please ask that question and report back?
I plan on it.
Awesome. So this is part of
and
this whole
we've been talking for an hour, and we've not talked about your website, your social media, or anything like that. So
let's close on that.
We are a bad show here.
Oh, it's
so
where can we find you?
Well, that's a good way to end. Yeah.
So mythicistmilwaukee.com, on Twitter at mythicistmke, Facebook Mythicist Milwaukee. Just type in Mythicist. We're pretty much the first hit on Google for the most part. So that's all of our stuff.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show, and you'll see Dan pretty soon. Wish I could be there to meet you guys in person, but I'm sure we'll have a chance at another time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
We'll miss you,
guys.
Natalie, but looking forward to meet you, Dan.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys. All right. We need